come from this program. And I went on it last year. Life changing, amazing.
I
so
100%. Yeah, 100%. We'll have a chat about it later, and then I 100% apply next year. Inshallah.
Maybe I can get you in this year.
If it's still available, if it's still available.
I like this. There's some connections happening.
I love it.
And I'm most probably gonna come to school and do some aviation stuff as well. I'm having a sense of that.
Love that, honestly.
Do you know what? I wanted to touch on teaching a little bit, because obviously I feel like in this room, in this space in general, I feel like we all teach in some way, shape, or form, and I feel like that's kind of like the field we're in. So in terms of teaching, like through going through the process of teaching other people or young people, like what have you learned through that process? What's been your takeaway so far?
I'd love to start with the teacher.
Yeah.
but you're doing personal development stuff, right? So
teaching, I think the definition of teaching, whether it's in a classroom, whether it's in a youth club, whether it's online, whether it's with young people, with old people, the definition of teaching has many forms. Like I think when I look at teaching and what sort of pushed me into teaching, I was probably teaching from a very young age, and it was literally just teaching Arabic to dad's friends who were interested in learning Arabic. And that was a form of teaching, although yes, I wasn't qualified in all the aspects of pedagogy, but you were still teaching. You were still sharing a message or sharing something with someone else. So you are essentially teaching, no? But I think and again, I can't say that I've been teaching for 10 years, or I've only been in the field officially as a qualified teacher for almost 4 years now. And I think the thing that I've taken most is not to take any teacher or any student for granted. And I'll explain that point, because going through my teacher training, and this is hard to admit, but we have to, if you're like, even in, like you said, even in your own personal development, if you're going to develop, you have to reflect. And part of the teaching training, not even part, like they drilled it into us, reflective practice. If you don't have reflective practice, you don't reflect on what you've done, whether it's mistakes or success, you can't progress, and you can't evaluate that progress that you're making or that success that you're making. We used to look at primary school teachers and think, it's easy, man. The primary school teachers, they don't need to know anything. These guys are dumb. These guys are nothing. When I left mainstream and went to work in a pro, it was a lot more close to primary, because the students there were lacking so much because they had missed a lot of school, or because they just weren't able to be in mainstream. Yeah. And I wasn't trained in primary. And then I saw the wonders that some of those teachers were doing with those kids. And we're talking 14, 15-year-olds, but still doing content of 7, 8-year-olds in mainstream. That's what happens in pupil referral units, because these kids are very, very, very weak sometimes, and they need a solid base to build on. And you can't just go there and teach them anything. You have to give them that base. Yeah. And these guys were doing wonders. And these guys were primary, and these are the people that we were looking at and saying, we as secondary school teachers, you have to have, a degree in science or engineering or something to actually be able to teach GCSE and A-level. But these guys didn't necessarily, primary teaching, I see. We took that for granted so much that when I started doing it myself, I had to reteach myself certain methods and ways to deal with these children, and how to approach them, and how to deliver the content I knew, or the knowledge I had, how to deliver it according to their needs.
But that's the thing. So it's kind of like, I'm not saying the content doesn't matter. It does matter, but actually, I think teaching or working with those type of young people, I feel like it's more about the process of how you're going to engage those young people. I feel like
sorry.
No, go on.
The process that you mentioned, I mean, of course, I've never had any formal teaching training, but like, I don't call myself a teacher. I prefer the word educator. I don't know why. Just because teaching seems like, whenever you say the word teacher, it straight away puts an image in your head. But I feel like educator hasn't got that attached to it yet. Like to say, I just like to educate people about certain things. For me, the process the way I've like taught myself how to do it is, you start off with a foundation. And I guess because I'm an engineer, this just comes naturally. Like, start off with a foundation. When you want to build a house, you start off with a solid foundation. Yeah. The foundation in this respect, when you're trying to teach someone something, is something that you both can agree on. Something that you can both look at and be like, yes, we agree upon X thing. So when you agree on the starting point of the conversation, and you can both agree that this is where we're starting, then you start to piece little bits of information on top of that you both agree on as well. Yeah. So as you're adding one piece of information, you say, do you get that? They go, yeah. And then you go, okay, here's another piece of information. Makes sense? Cool. Another piece of information. Can you see where this is coming from? All right. And what you start to do by piece.
And the information we're talking about is that factual information we're talking about.
Factual information, a perspective on something. Like if you look at it this way, would you agree this like that? They go, yeah, I can see that. So what you start to do is on this solid foundation, you start to piece little pieces of the puzzle together until you create this image built upon a foundation that every single element on there is something they've agreed with. But what I like to do is I like to leave a nice big gap in the middle of the thing you're about to teach them. So you agree on everything, and then you go, you drop in that one thing that they didn't know that you're trying to teach them, and it goes, and it clicks into place because everything else they agree with. And then they see how that thing that you just taught them fits into everything else that they already understood about life.
And it's like that kind of moment.
The light bulb moment.
Light bulb moment.
And that what he's just described there is what you'd call in teaching self-assessment. An assessment for learning or assessment of learning. And that's the thing, step by step, if you're going, and even if I teach science, anyone teaches history, whatever subject you teach, I teach a bit of science and Spanish, and when the need arises, again, in a pro, you have to be flexible. But when you're talking about that assessment for learning or that self-assessment, it's key. Like, and he's just described things, and it doesn't matter whether you've had formal teacher training or formal experience within it, a sort of school environment or institution. It doesn't have to necessarily be in there, but what you've just explained now fits perfectly. Why? Because it's important and it's key for when you're trying to deliver, like you said, the piece of information you're trying to teach them. When all those little bits click, and how do they click? They click by you returning to the student that's trying to learn. It's like, so we've got X, Y, Z, we've got this, and that. What do you think this is? And then they'll try and find what it is, or you try and help them find what it is. And then once they can confirm that, whether you're using a mark scheme to check your exam paper, or whether you're using a already existing design to compare with what you're trying to teach them, that self-assessment for them to look at it and say, oh, wait a second, I know. Returning to the student always and allowing them. And in a way, it sort of can fit into independent learning, and then you can let them flow and see how they can learn from it. But it's perfect. It's beautiful. I mean, that is the way. There's no better way than that. And unfortunately, how much that is done in mainstream always depends on context.
Do you know what's funny? Like so teaching's almost like a conversation, a type of conversation that people are having, because like sometimes conversations don't have to be like like a ping pong table is back and forth. Like sometimes someone can be talking, and then listening's, part of the conversation. Is like, then I'm having my own internal conversation inside around what the content is. So it's really interesting. And you mentioned independent learning. And I think independent learning for me, and this is the other interesting bit as well. It's like, cool, I'm still having a conversation internally, even though I'm learning independently, but I'm still using someone else's content that someone else produced to learn. So I'm still having a conversation, just not live. And I'm still learning. I think that's really interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't remember who said it. I actually saw it a couple of days ago on social media. I can't remember. It was one of these, whether it was one of these Greek philosophers. I can't remember who exactly. Whether it was Socrates or I can't remember.
One of them ones. There were quite a few of them, So
you know the ones where they have a picture of a statue.
Yeah. It's the statue,
like
bruv.
I can't remember who it was, but it said, and if I can quote it properly, intelligent people learn from everyone and everything. Semi-intelligent people or mediocre people or average people learn from experiences. And then, I don't want to call them stupid, but daft individuals or people who are daft is worse than stupid. I'm trying to sugarcoat it, but people who are not as intelligent think they know it all already. So it's about trying to, like you said, sometimes that there is a big push in schools across the nation for student-led learning. So to try and reduce the amount of, even when other teachers were checking, when I was still in training, and they check what you, they'd come and a lesson observation just to observe you. One of the key focus points was how much you were talking in class, and they'd even time you sometimes. They don't want you to talk as much. Sometimes, of course, certain subtopics or subjects require that, but they try and limit the amount of time you talk and try and focus it on student-led learning.
That's interesting.
Student-led and independent learning. And I think it is very important. Sometimes you find that many students learn better when they're actually trying to discover things on their own. Of course, you're always there. You're that presence in class to guide and to show, but not to just give the answer to.
You know what this reminds me of? I done a course once about coaching. And it's interesting when you look at the difference between mentoring and coaching. Many people don't know the difference between mentoring and coaching. They think, oh, well, just lob them into the same thing. But a coach never gives you the answer. They just ask you questions and they allow you to discover the answer.
Yeah.
Whereas a mentor is somebody who says, I've been there, I've done that, here's what you need to do.
100%.
Comes from experience.
It seems like teaching in the ideal sense is when you're simply asking questions, adding little vital bits along the way, but allowing them to touch and feel the way forward rather than just saying, here's the answer, go home, do your homework, come back.
Yeah.
And then who's your mentor in teaching? Who becomes your mentor? Your form tutor. That's the sense of it. Your form tutor has that time for all your pastoral needs, all that mentoring side of things where, listen, this is my experience. Or say, for example, you've got a form class of year 11s maybe, right? And you're talking to them about job opportunities, application to sixth form, or that's that time you get. Maybe it's not enough time. You know, you've got one teacher and 30 kids and all you get is 15 minutes in the morning, maybe 15 minutes in the afternoon maximum, or half an hour in the morning. But that is sort of where you try and get to those students on that scale of things. And then when you're teaching, I agree, man, predominantly like you try and be that coach to guide them in the correct way, not give them the answers necessarily. But then after a while, the method you spoke about before, sort of agreeing on something, or that self-assessment where they can see it, oh, this is where I went right, this is where I went wrong. You need to come back to that and find space for that within your teaching. So sort of structuring, and I think reflecting on it, I found that my worst thing was time management when it came to my training. When I was in training, was I wanted to do everything so well that it wasn't fitting into 50-minute lessons or 45-minute lessons. Because it depends the context of the school you're working in, etc. So when your time, you've got limited time, how do I use that time to get as much?
What's the answer from your experience?
The answer is to, again, not give them everything. Allow them to be, because if you're allowing them to do a lot of that stuff, then they're the ones finding their own answers. You're not spending that time explaining everything.
You know what that's like? You know those adverts on TV that are like 30 seconds long, where they don't actually tell you everything, but they set the context where you go,
Yeah.
Like, and then they'll leave you at that.
And funny enough, sometimes they actually use questions in those adverts. They'll make us reflect that. You know what? So earlier you was talking about,
did you have an accident?
The process of coaching and stuff. And earlier you mentioned like what you would do. You would ask, what would happen if you looked at it from this perspective? I think that's a powerful question in itself, because that allows for another person to look at things from another perspective. Because usually, you know, sometimes I can be like tunnel vision, or people can be tunnel visioned and not look from another point of view. I think that's a very important. I think questions are really powerful in general.
What's your experience been like with teaching?
My experience with teaching, I think I've got to the point where like now I'm more of a coach, rather than a teacher. But it's still teaching in a way, like in a weird way, because I think going back to my definition of, I think teaching is allowing someone to have a conversation, whether internally or, you know, with another person. But I think for me, when it comes to teaching, it's more about questions, asking powerful questions that can kind of help them raise the awareness of something and potential actions and whatnot. But I do sometimes actually give advice as well. I think that's also powerful, depending on the relationship you have with the person. But I think when it comes to teaching, relationship is very important. I think people won't want to learn anything from you unless they have a great relationship. And it's, you know what, it's really interesting to say that now, because, for instance, like there might be some, you know, famous people who might be teaching other people certain things, right? They might not necessarily have a personal relationship with that person, with that famous person, but they still have a relationship with them because they have an image of who that person is, right? Because what is a relationship?
Yeah, you know what this reminds me of? Like that, when people feel like they know someone when the person doesn't even know the other person exists. Yeah. That relationship's really interesting. So at work, one of the senior management was basically asking me, what do the people on the ground that I don't really get to see often think of me? So I went around asking people, what do you think of this senior manager? And they were like, listen, we don't even know what he does. what his work is. Like he'll pop in every once in a while, but every time we hear of him, he's just a bearer of bad news. And I'm thinking, how cool? He asked me, how can I get that to change? And something that popped into my head was, okay, so his relationship is he never gets to see these people.
Yeah.
But he's there, right? How does he build a relationship with people he never gets to see? So I in my head, something popped up where I got a message from some Pakistani woman like 6 months ago where she was like, listen, I know you never know who I am. I'm just some random person who's just on the internet who's messaging you. But I've been following you for like 2 years. I've been seeing all your stuff.
Yeah.
Keep it up. I know you don't know me, but I feel like I know you. And I'm thinking to myself, raw.
And she's got a relationship with
She's
you.
got a relationship with me, and I don't even know she exists. So I was thinking to myself, how can this senior manager have the same thing to the people on the ground? They just need to consistently see little short snippets of what this guy's doing on a constant reoccurring occasion, and then they'll feel like they know him even though he's not there. So he needs like a story. Like, you know how like Instagram stories, he basically needs some sort of professional version of that where they can click on it and see what this guy's been up to. Because if he does that for long enough, then they're gonna feel like they know him even though they've never met him. So I told him that. I told him that, and he's like, Ramo, you need to be my like personal consultant when it comes to comms at work. I was like, do what you have to do.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. Like that's an interesting question. You know, like who decides? You know, if someone's got a relationship. You know, because I think, you know, this is the funny part. You know, they say that relationships have to be two-way street, right? I think I disagree now, because now I'm thinking about this live, right? Because I think there needs to be a relationship from one person, and then they have another person will have a relationship of whatever that relationship is in their own mind. You know, like it might be a shit relationship, it might be a great relationship, whatever it is. But I feel like, yeah, like people need to shape their own relationships based on how they feel about something.
Absolutely. I wouldn't disagree that relationships don't necessarily have to be a two-way street. But again, we have to be very cautious when it comes to these kind of relationships.
Yeah.
In the case with Mo, for example, it's extremely positive, and it was a positive message from this lady, and you know, it is a motivator. It pushes you, and you know, instances like that when people pop up, and random people or people you haven't spoken to in ages or never spoken to, and it gives you that motivation. You're like, thank you so much, really, that kind word, no, that smile. Sometimes you're walking down the street, you're not going to lose anything if you smile at the person walking across you, and that could have made his day, and you don't know his or her day, and you don't know what that person has been going through. So that smile could have, and it's helpful. But then again, if it's the extreme and it becomes obsession, and it becomes, that's when that relationship.
But that's the thing. But I would debate. So I would debate that's still a relationship. You know, like I think we can have a relationship with anything.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a positive.
Do you know what? In a really weird way, I'm gonna say I am a relationship.
In what sense?
Because everything I have a relationship with is to do with me. Like which is actually quite fascinating.
What do you mean by that?
So I've literally got a relationship with life, and then everything in life that's there, you know, whether
of course your interactions, your daily
money,
interactions
people,
are all mini relationships,
material things. So I literally have in a kind of in a weird way I would say I am a relationship, which is quite a funny thing to say.
You know what, that actually brings to life something that I've recently started to think about. So about a month ago I was in Mexico, and there was like a spiritual summit that I attended, right? Not something I'd usually do, but it was a bunch of like people who were like, you know, they talk.
Bro, you don't have to defend it, you know, because like it's not something that you should.
But I loved it.
Yeah.
Because these people thought about the world as something they are a part of, and it is a part of them. So whenever they think about the world, they look at that, they say the same thing that you just said. It's like, we are a part of this earth.
Yeah.
And the earth is a part of us. And they literally say, I am like, in different words, but I'm in a relationship with this earth. I am a relationship. Like everything I do in this earth will have an impact on it.
Yeah.
And vice versa. Like that could be one way of looking at that, where you see yourself as an entity, that everything that you do will have an output into this world. Hence why it's a relationship.
It's like what Jordan Peterson said. What was it? Is the world would not be complete without you? I think you must have said that.
So you know what? On that note, I've came across this really interesting thing in one of the audiobooks I was listening to. It defined the world in like two ways, right? So they said there's your world and there's the world. So there's and you kind of spoke about it, like, you know, the two separate things. And what's really interesting about that is that I can control my own world, right? And I can potentially influence the world based on how, you know, how my own world is, but just in general, I can't control that other world. You know what I'm saying? Which is really, really interesting. So it's kind of like, sometimes like, which world are we paying attention to? The one out there or our own world? And sometimes I feel like news, for instance, like obviously we all know that news are super negative, and I don't know what their tactics are, even if they got tactics or whatever, but it's always negative most of the time. But it's really interesting because that's the world. That's not my world, which is quite fascinating. I've got a question for both of you. It's one of my favorite questions. What's your superpower? And you're not allowed to say teaching. Yeah.
Damn it.
Or educating. Well,
you take this one
in most cases, educating. In your case, teaching. Yeah. So you're not allowed to say those two.
Sometimes I use teacher, sometimes educator.
Yeah.
Like it's not like when it comes to that, but educator encompasses all aspects of teaching, all fronts of teaching. But yeah, the question, I think, take it first, Mo.
I'll take it first. I would say my superpower is building an image in people's minds that can show them a different perspective on the world. So it's a very creative process in my world. Like, I don't just view it as I'm talking to somebody. I feel like I'm painting an image in your head, and then I step back and it's a masterpiece and it's clicked in your own head. So for me, the way I view like how thoughts in my head turn into words on my tongue that transmit through space, I literally see that as a creative process to be able to create an image and articulate an image that then you decode in your own mind to be able to create that masterpiece that can then change your life some way, shape or form. Like, that's what I like to do. I like to create masterpieces in people's minds that can then maybe add value to their life.
Love that.
Amazing.
Masterpieces. You just created one now. Like, I'm just thinking,
Neil's just imagining there. You've given him you've painted it in his head, and he's like, I can see the masterpiece.
Yeah, no, that's really.
You can see it. You can.
Have you seen that thing where it's like, I like it, Picasso.
Literally spot on Picasso.
Emotional. I'm not gonna.
One of two ways.
No, honestly, that was
both extremes.
No, that was super profound, man. That was super profound. Yeah.
I think there's another bit to that. The way I like to do that is by connecting two random things you never thought could be connected. I love connecting random things that can never be connected.
You know what, yeah? So on the last episode, we spoke about this potential. You know what? I think it's going to become a reality, you know? So it's
a trademark it from now.
Listen, it's boxing and podcasting. So basically, you know, like two fighters, they box for like 2 rounds. They box for like 3 minutes in the first round. Then they sit down for 3 minutes in the corners, and you know, they pull up the mics and stuff, and they talk shit to each other. So it's like, well, no, they can say whatever they want. Actually, you know, they might not be talking shit, but I'm guessing they would be talking shit.
It would be nice if it was a constructive conversation, and then they lead to beating each other up. Like,
or you know what, or maybe there's certain rules like where they get a topic to talk about for 3 minutes, and then people decide like who spoke about the topic better.
But then
it's part of the scoring system.
And you've got 2 wins. I was about to say you've got 2 wins. Who wins in the boxing and who wins in the discussion?
Yeah. But you know what's interesting? Like you said, you know, you like putting 2 random things together, and I was thinking actually in life, I feel like that's a useful skill to have, or useful ability to have, because like I think sometimes, for instance, another example, let's say someone's into fitness, right? Someone's into fitness, like they're doing they do gym and whatnot, and then let's say they want to get into property development. Their niche could literally be, they will look at how they can implement a fitness sort of like space within properties they develop and stuff, you know. So it's just like it's about putting 2 random things together and seeing how they could literally work, you know.
It works. It genuinely works perfectly. Putting these random things, I think, and it fits in within the bigger picture. Like do you know that, I forgot what it was called, but do you know that you're always 6 people away from someone famous or someone big? Or that. So the world is so tiny and so small that you would be surprised how non-random something is, despite you looking at 2 things and thinking, these 2 things have got no relationship whatsoever. But like literally by not just painting that picture, but by providing those tools, like you said, when you're trying to teach, or by providing the tools, sometimes those 2 things could be much more familiar than you see them. and I think it's and then again it's to answer the question you asked, because it feeds into this. Like, apart from painting the picture and looking at it, I think for me most importantly, I'd like to think, you know, I've worked on some skills along life and mastered a couple of them. But for me, the one that still remains a daily use, one that, you know, I've used from the minute I've walked into here, or is my superpower for me, is communication. Communication and being able to understand. And we were talking about that, the cultural things at the start, right? Communication and understanding. And sometimes it really, like, I found it extremely useful in university, in day-to-day life, with people from all parts. I mean, the fact that, and again, communication, not just to communicate in one language, but across cultural boundaries, religious boundaries, understanding other people's fears, other people's worries. So being able to communicate effectively with these individuals is like, you know, it's like a maze sometimes, but using that communication, like, and again, it could be, for me, I felt personally, for me, it's been through language. So the fact that I can speak English, Arabic, Spanish and French, whenever I'm talking to someone who's got Spanish heritage, I mean, the other day, my brother was going to buy a motorbike, and we ended up buying from some guy who was from Colombia. And the minute we were talking to him and I heard a bit of a Spanish accent to his voice, I was like, where are you from? Colombia. Ay, tío. Empezamos a hablar en español. We started talking in Spanish, and then the guy was tense because he thought, you know, he was afraid. He was there with his mate just in case we were going to rob his bike or something, because you don't know in London these days. You're going to buy a ped. The guy went from tense to proper chill and started talking, you know, family, this, that.
Yeah,
and that was literally, that broke the tense situation in a snap. And that was 2 words in Spanish. And the same happens when I'm talking in Arabic to a group of people that maybe don't, say, for example, working at the university and doing maybe an open day for prospective students coming along, right? And you see a family coming from, I don't know, from the Arab world somewhere, or from Spain, or from somewhere in France, or that speak a different language, and you notice. And the minute you start speaking to them, I recall this quite vividly, and the girl, I think she's finished uni now. She studied pharmaceutical science. I did an open day maybe 3-4 years ago. She came with her dad, and they were from Norway. They were Palestinians, but from Norway. So she was moving from Norway to study pharmaceutical science at Kingston. And I sort of noticed they were speaking to each other in Arabic, and I was doing like a campus tour. Before I got to finish the campus tour, I turned around to them when all the parents had gone, and I started speaking to them in Arabic. The dad's eyes lit up. The dad was, honestly, I couldn't, like, it was, I remember it so vividly, like I could still imagine his face, because he looked at me and he's like, my heart has rested now. I was so worried she's coming to this uni. Like, please treat her like you, whatever you need, let me know. Here's my number. End up giving me his number. Started calling me from Norway, like checking in. How are you? How's things? Do you need me? Do you need anything from here? Please, every now and again, maybe drop her a message, see how she's doing. Like, she's like your little sister. Like, and that, I was like, I and then we talk about randoms. Like, I had no idea who those people are. And with one word, or with just, and I think it comes to sometimes when you're speaking to people, it's making something that isn't something that is, because we as human beings, naturally, we're going to fear what is different. And I think I spoke about this in the previous podcast and previous episode, sorry. And we naturally fear what is different, whether it's someone's religion, someone's color, someone's culture, wherever they come from, their language. Oh, you know, we're cautious. And no, this person, you know, has got a headscarf on. This person is this color, etc. You fear what is different naturally. But if you bring that thing that is different and you familiarize it to those people, you bring something which they fear and you make it familiar, and you make them, you allow them the ability to try and understand it, then they no longer fear it. Yeah. And it allows them that ease, and it allows them that to be able to relax and take a step back. And that's when you can start educating, teaching. That's you're setting the scene for you to be able to then impart whatever you need to impart onto them. And that communication for me, genuinely, like, and I'm super thankful for it, because again, apart from you study certain languages or you try and learn them, etc. But I have to be honest with myself. If I wasn't born and bred in the place where I was, or if I didn't have the life experiences that I had, I'm thankful to God for the opportunities and for putting me in the place that I was at the time that I was, you know what I mean? Like, just being born in Morocco, moving to Gibraltar at the age of 3, then coming to the UK, being exposed to Arabic, Spanish from a very young age, English, and then opening that up to such a diverse world, which was London.
Do you know what I would debate though? I would debate that there could have been another person who's literally been exposed to all of these things, same experiences and stuff, but they might not have learned that or developed it.
You're right.
Based on choice.
You know what that reminds me of? That exact thing that you're saying is like, sometimes we're exposed to things, but it just doesn't seep in. It's the same with opportunities in life, in all way, shape or form. Like sometimes there are opportunities right underneath people's noses that they just did not see, simply because they didn't tune into that way of thinking. Like, I don't know, I'm sure that at the moment, at some point in your lives, you start to think differently about money, right? In everyone's life, for example, for me, I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yeah,
amazing book.
You read it?
Not yet. No.
Yeah, but at some point you flick your perspective across. That moment that changes, you look around in your life, and everything is now different.
Everything looks different.
Yeah. So in the same way, maybe the way you were brought up allowed you to see these things in a way that somebody else was brought up just didn't. They weren't tuned into that. It's like, when you're driving in the car, right? All the radio frequencies are around you, but which one are you gonna choose on the radio station? Because you can choose this one, classic, and you'll be listening to classical music, or you can choose Kiss FM and you're going to be doing the R&B, hip hop.
But the keyword is choose though, right?
Choice is it. Choice is it, yeah.
But also, so this is the thing. So I have this metaphor. Like it's one of my favorite metaphors, and the thing when it comes to, for instance, anything I create in life, right, comes from what I consume. Yeah. So for instance, like if I'm gonna have a coffee and I put salt in there, the coffee's gonna be salty. Yeah. If I put sugar in there, it's gonna be sweet. So when people tell me like, oh, it doesn't matter what I consume, like it's not gonna affect me. Actually, I would debate that, because I feel like I make choices to consume certain things that I know will help me output later on in a creative way, and
Absolutely.
I think that's really, really important. I think people don't talk about that. So I feel like so what I'm saying, so I'm actually debating, I'm saying I feel like you chose to learn those languages and do those other things, and I think sometimes as individuals we don't like recognize ourselves, and we don't empower ourselves to say, what, actually I've got there because I chose to do certain things.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree 100%, and thank you for that. No, I genuinely, yes, absolutely. Choice, and sometimes it seems we can all relate to this. Like anyone looking from the outside in would sometimes say, and even with famous football players, for example, oh, I've got an easy life, but they haven't seen the grind and the effort and the crying and the sleepless nights and the stress and the negative comments and the everything else that the iceberg image, right? Just the tip of the iceberg is all you see, but everything underneath, no one sees. But 100%. But for me, like genuinely, when I have conversations and coming back to the point of that I said, just I'm thankful for the fact that I had these experiences in life, or God allowed me to have these experiences in life, is because genuinely I use that as a tool of gratitude, and it grounds me. It doesn't allow me, like that is a big fear that I have, in everything that I do in life, is that I allow myself to allow my ego to overtake. And allow my ego to present itself, or me, or the nefs, myself, like the me. I always try and keep that in check, and I think part and parcel of that gratitude is sometimes to say, wait, stop a second, these opportunities that I had in life, or these experiences I had in life, yes, I did choose and I made an effort and I worked hard, and that's why I am where I am, but I'm thankful for these opportunities, because without, and again, whoever person believes in, for me, without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without God, and without the belief that I have, I wouldn't necessarily be where I am today. And it's about, and that choice that you spoke about, for me, it's super important, because, and I mentioned this in the previous episode, I mean, I was born in Morocco, and at the time there was no way, if it wasn't for one specific thing that happened in my life, which was being diagnosed with cancer at the age of 3, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be speaking to you in English. Let's put that into perspective. Like if, for example, I had gone to visit my dad in Gibraltar, because initially it was I got diagnosed with cancer in Gibraltar, but at the time, and that's why I sort of jumped into politics recently, is because at the time there was such discrimination that the Moroccan workers in Gibraltar had no right for family reunification. So you could work in Gibraltar, but you couldn't bring your family over, no way. Like your family can only come for 1 month visit during the summer, and that's it. So I was born in Morocco in 94, and then 97 I went for that 1 month summer visit. And in the second week, piece of skin, corner of my eye started growing, and it was a tumor. It was a rhabdomyosarcoma, soft tissue sarcoma. That's why I ended up studying a master's in cancer biology. But it's one thing leads to another, the reasons. No, but say, for example, I didn't get cancer in 97 in the summer. At the end of that holiday, I would have gone back to Morocco.
Do you know what though? Yeah, I feel like sometimes there is this whole thing of like if this and if that. However, like you know, people talk about making the right decision and making the right choice, and you know, people go, should I go to uni? Should I not go to uni? And my thing is like, actually, we don't know. You know how. No,
and there's that.
Yeah.
And for me, and I always attach myself to it. No, and there's different. Like although there is a Quranic verse that this always ticks for me. There's also a cultural saying in Spanish, and I'll mention both. And in different cultures, there's different ways, but there's the Quranic verse, وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ وَعَسَىٰ أَن تُحِبُّوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ شَرٌّ لَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. So, and maybe I don't want to translate directly, but it basically translates to maybe you want something and you think it's good for you, but God knows it's not good for you and it doesn't happen. And maybe you don't want something, but God knows it's good for you and it happens, you know? And, you know, cancer, of course cancer is not good for you, but God knew that was going to be a reason why me and my family ended up joining my father in Gibraltar. My siblings ended up being born there. I ended up getting an education, sent to study in the UK. And I got the treatment I needed to get, because at the time I probably would have lost my eye in Morocco. So that was the reason. Cancer wasn't good. That was the reason. But what was the final goal? I didn't know the final goal at the time, neither did my father. But to this day, my dad speaks about this, and he says to me, and tears in his eyes, he says, I remember the tree, it's still there, the tree that he had to like put himself on because he was about to faint when they'd given him the news. And he was questioning God at the time. He was like, why Allah? Like, why? Like, look, that person has 6, 7 kids. This is my firstborn, my only son. Like, why him? And look now, you know, 20 years later, or like 25 years later, like we can see why. You know, maybe you don't see the why immediately, but the why you'll see it later. And in Spanish they say, dicen que no hay mal que por bien no venga. There isn't an evil, or there isn't something bad that for something good doesn't come.
Do you know what's interesting? So I have, I think you have a beautiful way of looking at it. My thing was just like more technical. So I'm a believer of any situation or any event in life has got short-term benefits and long-term benefits, and 2 different types of benefits. One is which is visible, and one is invisible at a time. So there'll be some short-term benefits that, you know, are not visible, and some that are visible, like we know what the benefit is of that situation. And there's some long-term invisible ones. I think those are the most fascinating ones, because when they fall in place later on in the future, you go, oh my God, if that thing didn't happen,
it was
exactly. And I feel like everyone goes through that.
I get excited whenever something bad happens, because I know something good's coming.
Yeah, if that drives you, if that's something that gives you this feeling that, you know, okay, this is bad, but you have that drive. It could be a belief, it could be a drive, it could be optimism. You know, it's this optimism that you have in you that no matter how bleak things look, I know that, you know, past this is something better.
You know what? There's a verse in the Quran as well that basically says, give good news to the people who have patience, that when something bad happens, if they say, you know what, God's got my back, basically, like inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un, then God will give them blessings and blessings and blessings to come. So the contrast from the start of the verse is like, give good news to those when something bad happens. So literally what you're saying is like, God is telling you, by the way, thumbs up, something bad has just come your way. If you're patient, then God is gonna
how are you gonna react to that?
Do you know what else is interesting as well? Yeah, because I said this to you earlier. I messaged Aladdin actually, and I'm not questioning your thing, but just in general, I feel like sometimes. So I'm changing the direction of the conversation a little bit. But you know, in life, yeah. So what did you say? You said when something bad happens, something good is coming.
Yeah, I get excited because something good is coming.
So I think in life there's certain like strategies or certain ways of thinking or living. I feel like sometimes people say stuff. Yeah, but application is completely different. You know what I'm trying to say? So you might be saying, I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm just using you as an example. You might be saying that, but when something bad happens, you might not even be thinking something is good.
No, but it's about being a present to the moment and how long you're going to be a present to the moment for. If something bad happens to me now, I'm gonna react. if I break my leg or this or that, whatever, so I'm gonna react. That's just human nature.
Right in that moment.
But how long?
Yeah.
But how long before I can take control of my own vehicle and say, you know what, yeah, I'm gonna be a prisoner to the moment up until now, and then take control after that.
Absolutely.
So when I say what I say I get excited after the prisoner to the moment, which is minimizing as the day goes by.
I just remembered Mo's story on when you broke your leg.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
Take the remote, man.
that moment when I broke my leg, I remember opening my eyes. I was on a ski trip and I saw my leg sat on my right shoulder.
Like, hey, how's your day going?
Pointing that way as well. Like, I mean, like, it was mad. I was 16. But only recently, more recently, I started to learn about mindfulness, and I realized that I was so mindful in that moment, because what happened is in that moment I zoomed out, and my mind gave me two choices. It said you can be a prisoner, or it said you can just deal with it. And like, I didn't it was a conscious effort, but I didn't consciously choose to be mindful. It kind of just happened by accident.
Yeah, because the human mind and the human brain creates solution upon being in desperation, innit? So you were in a position that you've never experienced before, and you were in a desperation mindset, and in that you create a solution. And that's probably based on your previous experiences, all that added up to your reaction in that moment.
Yeah.
You feel me? So you create a solution subconsciously because your mind is so strong and powerful due to your prior experiences.
And even naturally, if you think about it, like, fair enough. Like, if you're in a crap situation or something bad's happened to you, it's only natural for you to be angry, or for you to, whether you're a prisoner of the moment or not, it's natural. We as human beings, without noticing, and again, maybe it's from personal experience or from things that you may have seen, we create our own coping mechanisms. My coping mechanism is not going to be the same as yours, not going to be the same as Mo's. My coping mechanism allows me to cope with the things that I have to bear on my back every single day. Those are not going to be the same for everyone. They're going to be quite different, whatever it is about. So those coping mechanisms themselves, they become either, again, how you make those coping mechanisms allows you to be optimistic or pessimistic. And then, the more pessimistic you are, the more pessimists that surround you. Like, again, that's why we always come as surround yourself with people that are going to help you grow, etc. But it's about people's attitudes as well. It's like if I've had something negative and bad happen in my life, and if I've just got people around me that are just like, yeah, mate, you've got bad luck, and yeah, I wouldn't wish that happening to me, But if I have people telling me, listen, it's crap, yeah, but listen, we can come back from this. This is what's going to happen. Let's give me a solution. Don't give me a problem. Give me a solution. How are we going to sort this out? How are we going to do it? Like, and sometimes that leads to you being able to cope, leads to you being able to progress forward. Like, again, I was a kid, and this comes back to the point of choice. And like, I was 3 years old. I can't even comprehend what I was going through. No, whether it was the treatment or anything, but as I grew, when I'd say maybe 16, 17, maybe even 18, I was just like, I looked back and I thought, if I've been given this opportunity for life by God, if I'm not dead, I haven't lost my eye, I don't even have to wear glasses to see, thank God for that. I've been given this opportunity for life in this world, this other opportunity. What am I going to do with it? Am I just going to be normal and just be like everyone else and just do what everyone else does? Or am I going to step up? Stepping up has caused me, a lot of grief, a lot of issues, because maybe sometimes people don't want to hear the things you say. And mainly coming from a tiny community like that I come from in Gibraltar, for example. But I was like, I don't care what people think. My character is on point. I'll never treat someone, no matter where they come from, no matter what they believe in, no matter what they practice. If I am being me and true to myself and my beliefs and my convictions, then I'm going to treat people the way they deserve, the way I want to be treated by anyone else, and then progress wherever this life of mine is going to take me. And if I'm going to go down the route of education or the route of politics, always apply the core principles that I live by and my character,
the foundation,
to those things. That is the foundation. But I'm not gonna just think, I'm just gonna lead and just find a job and get married. No, I need some more value. Like, I can't waste this opportunity that's been given to me by God to just be anything. No, I need to make this mark. I need to be useful. And what brings happiness to me more than anything, and I think it's something, and I actually discussed it with the grandma of one of the students that I do private tuition for. the best thing, if you were to ask me what is your favorite thing and the best thing that you get from it, giving to others, man. Giving to others. The happiness that making someone else happy. Giving to someone else. And no matter, and this is something that, you know, is attached to our faith, etc. But when I spoke to this lady, and this lady is not Muslim, this lady actually was Catholic and now doesn't believe in anything. But we were discussing, and it's quite interesting, we have these discussions and stuff, me and her and I, and she told me that she got to the age of 40 and nothing was doing it for her. She had the house, she had the kids, you know, nothing was doing it for her. She had the car, you know, she had the job, nothing, she just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And she said that initially when she had her kids, it filled the void, and, you know, she was giving to her kids, she was serving her kids, and then after that she was just, I don't know. And then she started working with people, helping people in, where it was Sierra Leone, actively actually doing stuff and helping people in places where, you know, one of her friends was volunteering out there and stuff. And she said from that moment on, that void she felt was always filled.
Yeah.
And that feeling, I had to relate to her in that moment, because the minute, like, whether it's, and the best feeling is when there's no compensation whatsoever. There's no expectation of compensation. There's no expectation of anything in return, but you're doing it and there's a smile in your face and you're so content, and there's nothing that's coming out apart from the smile that you get.
Don't forget to post on social media. No, I was just thinking, like, I've seen a lot of videos out there where someone will, like, help someone that's homeless and stuff, and they take a video of doing that. So I'm just like, are you actually, you know, are they actually helping?
I'll have to touch on
that person, or did they just want to put it on social media?
I want to talk about that void that you described. There's a book called The Secrets of Divine Love, and it's just like a dive into spirituality from the Islamic faith. But it mentions something that was really interesting. It says that in this world that we're living in, if you look at an atom, which is a building block of this world, actually the inner depths of an atom is the nucleus. Everything else around the nucleus is empty space. So 99.9999999% of everything that this world is built up of is empty space plus a little nucleus that creates forces. So in reality, the reason why that woman was feeling empty, the void within her, is because she was trying to fill a void with the reality around her, which was built up of nothing but empty space. Because everything in this world, in the Quran, is described as a delusion, which, if you think about it, if this is empty space, it looks like a table, but you're telling me physics is telling me it's an empty space. So technically, this is just a delusion. It's not actually a table, it's empty space. How do you then become content when you serve? That's an interesting thing that I've started to think about a lot. Service, why is service so contentful? Because let's look at what makes us content. So if from an Islamic perspective, God is what makes you content, all right? What has God done to all of us? He has given us our shelter. He's given us life. He's given us everything, all right? And he's given everything to us. So if we on this earth are meant to be a reflection of God on this earth, then we're just meant to do what God does on this earth. Be kind, be generous, and give. So the only thing that can fill that void within us is to do God's work. And what is God's work? God's work is giving. God's work is to be kind. So the void within us gets filled by giving and serving and just doing what God does. So by doing what God does, it fills that void, because now you're filling it with what God does, and God is the only thing in this universe that isn't empty space.
I agree. 100%.
Everything else is empty space.
I agree 100%. I was going to say to you, maybe crack a bit. Like, I agree 110%. But when you said God's work, God's work was the words used to justify colonialism, to justify the Crusades. But
we're talking kindness,
but 100%. You know, like, but when you say God's work, genuinely, like, it literally is just that. It's and again, and here I like, and even in podcasts like this or in general life, like, I like to be, although I'm a firm believer in my faith, but I like to be as open and inclusive to everyone. And you can apply what Mo's just said to many beliefs or none whatsoever. So any listeners that are listening to this who don't necessarily believe there is a God, or don't believe in any set faith, whether it's Abrahamic or not, just being a decent human being, whether you believe in something beyond physics, or beyond, something that you can't see, or God or faith, like, even if you don't believe in any of that, but you can see the benefits of being a decent human being. You can see the benefits of treating others in a nice and decent way. And sometimes you find that a lot. And unfortunately, nowadays we see there's a breakdown in many faiths of people believing in that faith. Why? Because faith has been hijacked, unfortunately, by individuals who don't preach this love, who don't do God's work, who preach hate, who try and divide. And that's why people are fleeing away from faith, many faiths. And that's, I think that's another big problem, because unfortunately, the faith and the teachings of faith are not the ones to blame, but much rather the human greed, the human hate, the toxicity of human beings as human beings, no matter their faith, no matter their race, no matter where they come from. This greed that we have inside of us as humans, this evil we have inside of us, sometimes it just takes over. And that then we use faith or anything else as a vessel, and we say, oh, I'm this, I'm that, and I'm practicing in the name of whoever. But no, that's you as a human being. You're evil. You're not a good person. And I think it comes to the point, I think, you know, I said it last time, you know, love each other, man. Listen, understand, and validate. You know, LUV, love. If you listen to someone, no matter where they listen, like even you're helping, for example, and I'll come back to the point of, you said about social media, right? I think it's important when we're talking about doing a lot of outreach work or volunteer work or helping the homeless or helping whoever, that the message gets put across in a right way, and it can be. And it's very sensitive.
But that's the thing. But do you know what I was gonna say?
But
yeah,
you can't be filming. You know what I mean? Like not as in
potentially. Even if the person wants to put something on social media, yeah, which is obviously maybe for their own selfish reasons,
yeah.
But it can still inspire other people or raise
yeah,
awareness
100%.
regardless. I feel like it's just that thing of like, I think I'm a true believer of like pros and cons, yin and yang, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I think they're the same thing. The pros and cons is the same thing. It can't be any other way around. That is that thing. I know it's just like, I'm just saying.
You have to weigh
Yeah, there's a book called The Power of Now that touches on that. And it
talks about the human beings are parasites as well.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about that book when I was talking about human beings. Yeah. Say,
So on that thing where it's like, it's good and bad at the same time, it goes back to what you were talking about earlier as well, about like when a situation happens or when something happens. And we've been talking about when something bad happens or when something good happens. The fact is, something just happened. And then you attach a good label or a bad label.
Yeah.
Depending on who you're surrounding yourself with, it's going to mean you're either going to attach a good or a bad label. But the fact is, it was neither good nor was it bad. It just happened.
Yeah,
you're right. The bottom line is the same thing.
Yeah, so that's why the yin and yang comes in. And all you do is are you concentrating on the white bit or are you concentrating on the black bit? Are you seeing a black hot semicircle on a white, or are you seeing a white on a black?
Do you know what's interesting? So Youssef mentioned pessimism earlier. At some point, you spoke about pessimism, and how some people can be pessimistic. I also believe that, you know, like optimism, pessimism, whatever you want to call it, is just a description of a perspective. That's what it is. It's going back to the whole thing. It was like, perspective is there. It's just how we describe that perspective. It's just a way of describing it. And I feel like, and also going back to language as well, I feel like it's really fascinating how we've got the gift of language, but it also has its limitations as well. You can't articulate certain things, and certain things are more about feelings. And, you know, like, I don't think sometimes there's words to describe certain things that people feel, even though we do have some words, but I don't feel like they're descriptive enough, or maybe it's not even possible to describe it or articulate it.
No, that is absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't say otherwise, because how many times have you seen any, maybe in the news, maybe with family, maybe on the street, maybe in a movie, how many times have you seen emotions be described better than by just watching someone? Whether it's tears rolling down their eyes, whether it's the look on their face, do you know what image you brought into my head right now when you said that? Sometimes language doesn't describe. The image of that Syrian father with a life vest on, holding his kid, coming out of the English Channel. And there was no one speaking, there was no language attached to that image at all. But that image spoke to me in many, many different ways. Or of the dead little baby on the French beaches, a Syrian refugee. That spoke to me volumes. Though there was no language attached to that, but it really does touch you and it speaks to you, and you're like, you're lost for words yourself. So, you know, it's just a moment of I don't even know how to explain it. Yeah, I'm lost.
What you say, it makes sense. It makes sense. All right, so I've got another question.
You were going to say something?
Yeah, on what he said earlier.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask him?
No, go for it.
So, you mentioned how you serve and not even have the slightest expectation of anything coming out of it. Now, what's really interesting is, in my space, right, I have a full-time job. It pays the bills. That's fine, right? But then I start doing all the extra stuff that I do. And for about 2 years, I've never even expected anything. I'll show up to a youth center, not even with a glimpse in my mind of anything coming out of it, right? But then over the past, like, I'd say, couple of months, I've started to, like, actually, someone speaking to me about how do I start to monetize the stuff that I do outside of work so that I can start to build a career out of it. And it's put me in a really, really difficult situation where I don't expect anyone to pay for me to talk to, like, them, to, like, bring them up and inspire a child to see the best in themselves and invest in themselves and personal development, all that stuff. I don't want to expect anything. But then you think, okay, like, they're saying, nah, like, you're giving them your time. There should be some sort of transactional relationship with that. Like, you're actually giving value. You wouldn't go to a dentist, expect them to add value to your teeth and then walk out without paying. It's like you're going there to add value to someone else. But it really tears me apart when I'm thinking, okay, but how do you monetize this and then not have the expectation? So what hurts is the expectation, because I don't ever want to be in a position where I have an expectation, but at the same time, if I want to monetize it as a business, doesn't that insinuate there's an expectation?
Yeah.
And that breaks me. So I'd love to hear your perspectives on that.
I'd say I'm as you were saying it, as it was coming out of your mouth, I was thinking about it, right? And I think, again, I've never been put in, maybe in similar situations, but not a situation like that specifically. Quite similar, to be honest. But I think it comes down to this. It comes down to the fact you're a human being. You've got your needs. You've got responsibilities. You've got things, you've got boxes that you need to tick yourself for you to be able to function. As long as you can compartmentalize and leave a certain amount of time dedicated and a certain amount of time which no one else is going to be able to tell you or no one else is going to know apart from yourself, because that's your intention behind that time. Your intention behind that time, you're going to say, this is the time I'm capable of giving. Not just say, for example, I'm just going to give an hour or two and that's my good deeds done. No, it's be honest with yourself. How much can I give? Even if it's a bit strenuous on my day to day, but this is the time I'm going to compartmentalize from my day to be able to maintain it as something where there is no expectation. And then, of course, you are more than in your right for the rest of the time, monetize and work on those ideas. Because why? We talk about being able to continue doing what you're doing, right? Being able to continue speaking, being able to continue to motivate, to lead, to advise, to... How are you going to do that if you're unable to make ends meet when it comes to other things? So by you allowing yourself the time to continue with monetizing, for example, the business idea and going ahead with it, but still being honest with yourself and dedicating that time, I think on the contrary, it would benefit it more, because what you're making from there maybe helps you free up more space for the other, or maybe gives you more financial stability or financial freedom for you to be able to reach further afar and travel more and see other people, etc. But that's just an opinion. No,
so my thing is this, I think you can monetize without having the expectation to. Monetizing is a process, right? It's like, it's not really, you don't need to have an expectation in order to monetize it. And I would say monetize it. Why not? Like, there's companies you spoke about not drinking and stuff. There's companies that sell alcohol. They monetize that. Is that adding value? I don't think so.
Yeah, no.
You know, maybe it depends on perspective, actually. For some people, it might be adding value, you know? But the thing is, like, they monetize their shit, you know what I'm saying? And they're not really adding value. And you're adding value, so why not monetize it?
I wanted to add this, and it fits perfectly with the question you asked now. I wanted to add this before. And so I did this course, and when you mentioned it, we'll have a chat about it later, about MCB and the Oxford Muslim Leadership Foundation. I was in an event last week with MLF, the Muslim Leadership Foundation. Some of the guys in Yunus in this institute in central London. It's a bit of a networking event with different Muslims working in all fields. So people in the civil service, teachers, there were influencers, people from everywhere, literally working in everything. But before then, last year in April, I did a leadership course, which is an intensive leadership course for 1 week. It was meant to be in Istanbul in Turkey actually, but COVID ruined the plans, so we had to do it online. And it was with this foundation called Sinan Ren Foundation. And Sinan Ren, the name comes from, I forgot his first name, something Sinan. He was a big architect in Turkey, Turkish architect, who built many of the beautiful mosques that you see in Turkey. And then Ren is Sir Christopher Wren, the architect behind St. Paul's Cathedral. And the idea with this foundation is to draw East and West together, and to bring East and West together, and to provide young people with leadership skills and with understanding of the world they live in to be able to lead. And one of the case studies that we had to dive deeply into was the one on Ernest Shackleton. And Ernest Shackleton was a man that did polar expeditions, one of the first men that went and did polar expeditions up in the North Pole, if I'm not wrong, and maybe they even went to the South Pole. I can't remember exactly, but the case study was not on just Ernest Shackleton; it was on the term servant leadership. Yeah. And what is servant leadership, and how, and I found myself, I was like, do you know when that light bulb moment that happened for me when I saw that? I thought, wait, there's a term I can describe myself with now. But Ernest Shackleton was getting a lot of money from that, but he was still a servant leader. He almost sacrificed his own life to save his crew. He wouldn't ask his crew to do things that he wouldn't do. And there are levels to servant leadership, of course, like anything in life, but like you said before, sometimes you can monetize and there can be benefits without the expectations. And servant leadership doesn't necessarily mean, you have to completely stop yourself from getting anything at all, because, on the contrary, your intention behind it, what is my intention behind doing this? And it comes down to it. And I think, honestly, like, it'd be more helpful and it'll push you even more further along that line if you're able to find a way to monetize it.
Do you know what else is really interesting as well? Yeah. So you're also, with what you're doing, you're also helping other people potentially have a better access to money anyways. So why, it's not like you're doing, you know what I'm trying to say? So it's not like money can't be involved. Like, and I think I'd be more interested with what your relationship with money is, because I think that's the underlying foundation for why you feel like you might want to monetize or not. But yeah, you was going to say.
Feeling, sorry to jump on that again, Mo, but that feeling is like, I genuinely feel for you, because again, growing up as ethnic minorities, maybe Ala, maybe Leo, maybe you can add on to this in a second, but how many times have you had maybe like elders in your community or elderly in your family saying, can you interpret this to English for me? Can you translate this for me, please? Like, I found myself in that position. So I established a business back in Gibraltar called Al-Andalus Communications. So basically an interpreting and translating company that I'm still working to build a bit more. And initially, throughout my youth, it was always whoever needed help with interpreting or translating something. Youssef, can you help us? Even sometimes where I had to spend hours translating something. And then when I came up with a business idea and I thought, I want to do this, I felt like, what if a friend asked me, can you interpret or translate this? Yeah. How do I do that? Yeah. I had a battle. Like, I was like, how do I? But then I thought about it and I said, you're committing. Like, if it's something, like, for example, there's always ways to make it work. Like, there was a little project, and subhanAllah, it's the intention behind it. Like, genuinely, you see how much effort you put in, and only you can be able to say, you know what, this is what I'm going to take out of it, or this is what I'm able to do, or this is. There was a project I worked on, and that's why this reminded me when you mentioned that, and it's so useful. And it's about what I said before, like grounding yourself and that gratitude and being, you know what, I'm good. I can take a cut from this water bottle. Like, I could take I don't have to have 2 water bottles. I can just have 1 today. And there was a little project on end of life treatment for people in hospital. They have this massive booklet on end of life treatment, and where you want to sign your stuff off to, who's your legal, who's the legal person that's going to end up taking care of your stuff when you're sick, etc. Elderly Moroccan people who could only speak Arabic and read Arabic and weren't well versed in English could not access that at all. The government wasn't making an effort at all. to be able to work with that. And that's why I came up with a business idea to try and, have, and not just for Arabic speaking people, but people from many, many different languages. Still working on sort of how to push the idea more with as many languages as possible, not just the ones I can speak, but work with linguists and language specialists across the world. And when we did that project, it was literally translating from English to Arabic, but that project took me a while.
Do you know what I was going to say? If you need help translating love, the language of love, I'll be involved.
That's amazing. Look at that here. I mean, genuinely, like that, and the project took hours. It took hours. It took and not just hours on one day. It was a couple of days because there's technical terms. You can't just copy paste, Google Translate everything. Like there's a lot into it. Applying the metrics that I have to give people a invoice. Okay. Came up to almost, if I can remember correctly, something around £450 to £500. The person who asked me to do it, it wasn't the government, it was a friend of Moroccan origin who was working as a nurse in the hospital, saw that all of that was happening and none of these people had access to that. And he reached out to me and said, Youssef, I'm paying it from my own pocket here. Can you please translate it? I'll cover everything. What do you do in that scenario?
Yeah.
Do you just completely and remember, like, you've had to sacrifice certain things not to be able to do. So I found and I haven't even established a company properly. I've got the invoice system and stuff, but I'm still learning and how to get everything proper and the books, etc. So I was like, for me, I know that I am capable of only taking a certain amount just to cover a couple of things for the time I spent on that, even if it doesn't equate to that exact time.
Don't even break even, but
I'm not even gonna break even. But this is all I'm gonna take, and this for me is me and him working towards our community or working to better the condition of certain people.
There's a bigger purpose behind it, so it's not just
what I mean. Like it's not, and you can always find that it's like a compromise in a sense, and it's difficult sometimes. You find yourself in a predicament, and you're like, where do I go? But genuinely, at the end of the day. And we've only met today and we've only spoken today, but from what I've heard you saying, from the things we've spoken about, from things we've discussed, you are an individual that clearly has that moral compass that will allow you to choose the right what's the word? Sometimes I forget what language I'm speaking in my head.
Yeah, just bust out
French. To choose the right option.
Tell me more about what you meant by translating the language of love. I want to know what you meant by that.
That's
it's the love of man. Shaba.
No. So there's a thing of sometimes I see people do certain things, and I can always see there's love involved.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Even if people get angry. So for instance, let's say there's two friends, and then I might call one of them a dickhead, and the other friend will get angry. He'll be like, "What? You're calling it?" So they get angry, but actually that's coming from a loving place. What they're really saying is that they love the friend, or love for the friend. So I feel like in how people communicate and how people engage with each other, I feel like there's always love behind it. Maybe not always, but most of the time there's love behind it. And maybe sometimes it's not directly for that particular scenario. So for instance, sometimes it can be loss of love.
Yeah.
Maybe they had a certain experience in life where they lost love. So it's still coming from a place of love. It just might not be a positive experience, but
wow, I think that's a very interesting topic to dive into because I don't know enough about it, but the way love can be seen and experienced and all of its different forms. Wow, everything from a parent who might hit their child and they might question, but it's because I want the best for you. It's like, what? Actually, fast forward 15 years, is that the best for them? So yes, it came from a loving place, but let's look at output.
Yeah.
Let's look at outcome. What will this lead to? So that might be interesting. So you could probably write a book about that, bro. That'll be sick.
Yeah, I think that would be sick, actually.
That language of love, you could even use empathy, sympathy.
Yeah.
When it comes to because it's funny actually. One of the children I teach, because bear in mind, I don't just teach in a classroom environment, barely at all these last few months. We do medical tuition, so students who have been at home, haven't left that because of the pandemic.
Wow.
We go to their homes and we teach them in their homes for sessions. And one of the students, young guy, 13, we were talking about, he was too tired, he wasn't feeling well to do a lesson, so we just had a chat. We covered a couple of things at the end.
One second. Come sit here.
You go toilet.
Yeah.
Go for it. No.
We're still rolling live.
We covered a couple of things in the session towards the end, but then we were having a conversation. We were talking about, the war that's happening, and people, and how lucky we have it, and how lucky he had it. He's complaining a bit to mum, and we were talking about how lucky we were to have what we have. And then he said something which is hilarious. I said empathy. I remembered what he said. He goes, I have a lot of apathetic empathy. And this kid's 13. But if you think about the world we live in, how much apathetic empathy or apathetic empathizers do we have around us in life?
I don't even know what that means, so explain it to me.
Neither do I. I love it though.
Like empathy, right? Empathy, when you feel empathy to someone, you see someone going for a tough time, and then apathy is just not caring. But apathetic empathizer, how many people today, when the war's happening or when kids are dying, they're able to just pop something on a story? Oh, that's my
care,
bit
but
like, I
care this much.
That's my 2-piece, and
that's that's.
I feel like I've done my bit now.
But that's the thing. That's apathetic empathy. Or it's so sad. Kids are dying here or kids are dying there.
Look what I've eaten today.
Literally. That's the thing.
Anyway, I can't believe petrol prices have gone up.
How many stories or how many people on social media do you see that just do that? I've put
all
a post
of us
up.
do that, I think.
We all end up doing that at some point without noticing. And it's just like, we've just literally minimized the suffering of people, or just completely removed. I don't even know how to explain it.
Because it's too much. That's why it's when there's so much of something happening, so the value of something becomes less the more it happens, right?
Yeah.
So war and what's going on in all these countries, because there's so much, it's like the value of it is been decreased. And that's why we care less about it. Yeah, it's basically the norm, and the norm is never going to be given so much attention.
It's like exposure therapy. Like the more you're exposed to it, the less it means
exactly.
to you. It's like we've been exposed to war and pain and suffering around the world. Now the less we care somehow.
And now the government have found a way to kind of apply that to the worst of the worst, aka war, aka illnesses and whatnot.
No, absolutely, man. I don't think. And then when it comes to that, when we talk about war and stuff like,
you don't want to sit
subtle.
Why?
And it's not even subtle anymore. Like the amount of double standards and hypocrisy that we live day to day these days is just unbelievable. It's unreal. And you think, are we as humans? Do we really learn from history? Do we really learn from history?
You know what I'm fascinated with? I'm fascinated with. There's always a first time for everything. So this is the first time I actually went to the toilet during the podcast shoot.
And you know what? You spoke about it at the beginning.
And
you said, "Oh, this guy."
And I'm thinking like, yo, like what else? What other first times are there? Like who gives a shit?
You know what's jokes? I heard something.
You just gave a shit just now.
Along the same lines. You still haven't heard the funniest joke you'll ever hear in your life. I find that such a funny but weird thing to think about. Like I still haven't laughed as hard as I ever will in my life yet, because until you hit about like 35, you ain't heard the funniest joke apparently, statistically. That's
do you know what's really funny? So I'm at workplace. For some weird reason, so I've noticed the pattern. For some weird reason, whenever we have like team meetings or anything like that, like when we do this thing of like we're checking out or something, and people get to pick like who's next and whatever, I always end up last. And I don't know, that shit's been fascinating me, because obviously there's something I don't understand of what happens in that process, but clearly, or something I understand about myself, but I always end up last. Obviously, I don't feel a way about it, but then I was thinking like, in terms of like first time for everything, maybe like last time for everything, and I'm thinking like, cool, like maybe I'm first to be last. Because then if I'm first to be last, like who else is gonna be after me?
Oh shit! Yeah, that's got that. That's interesting. That's lit.
You know what I'm saying?
Still,
Because there can't be if I'm first,
He's the
first. He's
if I'm first to be last, there can't be no one else that's gonna be last.
after him.
I'm the first one to be okay.
So you're
He's still technically he's first.
Yeah.
so you're the first to be last. So you're the first of the last one.
So he gets the luxury of being first.
What if I'm
his own-
last
in his
to
own
be
perspective.
first?
Bruh.
Yeah.
I think this is too
Emotional.
Emotional damage. Nah, but bro, it's fascinating, man. Like I think sometimes, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about perspective shift, right? And I feel like sometimes in life, I coast through doing certain things, yeah, like my regular day-to-day activities, and then when I break the kind of like the river of thought of how I usually think, and then I kind of like take a little step back and I just go, actually, this shit is fascinating. Like the alphabet is fascinating. If you think about the alphabet, it's actually fascinating because in Russia, in Russian alphabet, their letters look fucking different, but the alphabet's similar. And like I was thinking around like the basis of all language, the foundation of all language is the alphabet.
And you know what's interesting is the alphabet of each language and the alphabet of each continent and each country determines their culture, determines how they think, like the grammar of that language then determines the way that they approach situations. I'll give you a quick example that puts all of this into perspective. In Japan, the grammar of the way they formulate sentences means I don't actually understand what you're trying to say until you finished your sentence. That's why they always have those moments, because like I don't know what you're trying to say until you drop the last word in the sentence.
Yeah.
So which means I have to wait for you to finish your sentence before I can butt in. But in English, you can kind of see where I'm about to go with this sentence, even though I've just started it, which means our culture means we can butt in a lot easier than what they can, because they don't even know what the person's trying to say until they've finished. And that will completely change the way their culture is structured. That's why they're patient. They wait. They're more kind of like they're there.
That's fascinating.
And what did I say about communication before? It's literally the core of everything. Like, and communication doesn't just mean what I like when I said it's not just about speaking. We're talking on a cultural level, on a spiritual level. When you have that understanding of someone's culture, to be able to respect that person, then when you're building that relationship, and at the end of the day, it's all about relationships. When you build that relationship, when you come to build that
Relationship sync though, that's the problem. Relationship, so it can sink potentially.
You shoot that ship down. No, but I think
I think it should have been relation trees.
Because they just grow.
you blame the English language, man.
Yeah, but then you can cut down the tree.
Do you think there's like some kind of connection between community and communication?
I mean, if the branch of the word, I'm not
Because
an expert English.
Because do we have to communicate in order to build a community?
Yes.
Well, there must be communion,
Like
community,
like to combine maybe as well, like.
So like
You're bringing
unification.
two things together. You're bringing two things together. No? So if you said communion,
So what if it was community and then unification, communication? Is that, would that be a thing?
I mean, if we
we
look
can
at
look into the etymology of the actual word communication and actually break it down from Latin. This is why I love Arabic.
And what
because
community
in
is
Arabic, you can dig back in a word and it completely revolutionizes how you.
with the English, it's
what it
more
means.
tough.
Yeah.
But again, if we're going to look at community, I mean, although we like to use it, and I genuinely do when we do events and stuff, the word unity in community,
common
stuff
unity.
common. But again, whether that
Community.
actually has any trace when it comes to English epistemology or not, then like I've got no idea about those things. To be honest,
So
I'm no expert in that, but
it's people that communicate in order to create common unity to get together.
potentially,
Nice. I like the way you put
I
that.
fly with that. Yeah, I mean.
But yeah, so speaking of like first times, like I'm also playing around with this idea of like this is gonna be the first time we do the longest episode.
Yeah, we've went an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah,
You know, originally I was actually
go for it,
I was
yeah.
never going to tell you when like it was 10 minutes left. I was going to say, you know what?
That's cool.
Because I did want to say this at the end of the episode because I don't know what. So I told this to Leo several times. I told him this is the episode I'm looking forward to the most because it feels like the Avengers. Do you know what? Do you know what I mean? That, like you know. You know how like you got
the rings.
Leo. My guy. Yes.
It's like can't leave. Let's move the mics. Are we connecting? With the camera.
But now let me explain why though. It's like you got Iron Man solo movie, you got Thor solo movie, you got Captain America solo movie, but when they get together, that's when you got a box office hit. This is a box office hit.
Wait, so is there going to be like a thing at the end where someone walks into the room? Like, it's gonna the next episode.
But you know what's interesting?
Black Panther just comes in.
But you know what's interesting? I was thinking like,
and Ebbs walks in and what's going on? next one is him.
No, but it's the thing of like, I was just thinking like, cool. Like we made up our own rules. Like we made up our own rules to say, look, you know, episode's gonna be an hour long, like hour 10 minutes max, whatever. That's our own rules. But then I was thinking like, and I think one of the reasons for why we made it up is like some people don't want to listen to longer than an hour.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking like, actually, if people want to hear the content or they want to, if that content's important for them, like they'll listen to it, regardless if it's an hour long.
You get
and also. Like it's more about the people who's had. So if people look at a video and they go, "Oh, this is an hour 30 minutes," that's more about them than the content and the video. And we're not doing this for stats. Like we're doing like this is the goal. The goal is this conversation.
The goal is creating a common unity, and the common unity is the common thing is that everyone wants to be empowered. Why is everyone laughing?
Nah, bro, like come on, you're spitting bars, bro. You're spitting bars. Like you're not recognizing your own source.
That's always been the origin. I guess we move on to the topic of like the origin of. It's always been about creating a community. It's always been about creating a group of people, whether it be 5 or 2,000, doesn't matter. It's about creating a group of people who consume with purpose.
Do you know what we said in the previous episode? I think we spoke about this quite a lot when we spoke about networking. You know, whether it was communication / networking / and genuinely the value and I have to say this from personal experience, and whether it's you guys as part of my network or other people I've met through time, or coming from a small country like Gibraltar, whatever work you did, whether it was to empower a sub-community of the majority or whether to empower yourself or your own family, you felt alone. You felt very lonely. It was an uphill climb when it was to do anything, whether it was to break misconceptions or stereotypes within community, whether it was to organize events to familiarize people with anything. It was an uphill rise, and you know people won't join you until you're actually successful.
David and Goliath.
You're on your own. Yeah, you're on your own until they start smelling success, and then it's like, hey, you know, we're here to support. Fair enough. I chose to make that sacrifice. I knew it was going to be a burden. I knew it was going to be difficult. I chose to do it, and now that you've decided to join at this time, fair enough, because your circumstances didn't allow. I'm not going to hold prejudice why you didn't join from the beginning, but genuinely sitting with individuals like yourselves. Working in all different fields like you all do, empowering different, whether they're young people, older people, human beings in general, like feeling as part of a network, feeling that you're able to speak about experiences, to discuss these kind of topics is, apart from empowering, it's just so soothing and it's so relaxing, because you think, you know what, I'm not alone. I don't stand alone. And even if we're in different fields, even if I think it's something that's is cross-sectional across careers, across life in general, across communities, is that when you sit with people like this and talk, you feel like you're not alone. You're not alone at all.
Do you know what's interesting? I think one of the purposes for this is to just remind people that they're human at the end of the day. And also, like, excuse my language, but my intentions are good. Like, we're gonna monetize the shit out of this. We're gonna
why not?
I don't have the same problem as Mo. We are gonna monetize the shit out of this. You know what I'm saying? And we're still gonna be doing what's authentic to us and what we genuinely care about.
It's about intention, man. I say this from birth to death. It's all about intention.
Maybe not these episodes, because like I think when we swear, YouTube doesn't allow.
I don't know if you swear in the first
allow us to monetize. Oh, in the first 10 minutes.
First 10 minutes, and after
that you can swear as much as you want.
Cuss out someone's mom.
What the fuck? That's some fucking weird shit.
There we go. You know what? Gary Vee must make no money for his content.
But you know what it is? But Gary Vee's an interesting person, because like he swears a lot, but his intentions are good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it doesn't.
That's
It
what
doesn't.
I'm saying. When it comes to monetizing, is we are monetizing so that we can quit our day job and focus on this.
But you know, just you were talking about the equipment, right? Damn, this is
You've
how much
invested
does
in this.
But that's
This
the
is
thing.
an investment.
There is no issue with monetizing. You know, when you're and apart from that, just think about like let's put this into perspective a little bit. Yeah, a kid picks up their phone and they go on to Beyond the Surface Official, and they watch up. Not even a kid, me today. I've met Mo. I'd never met Mo before. Right? I'll be honest. When Alette was like Mo, I was like, okay. I didn't even go on Instagram. I tried to go on a picture on the WhatsApp picture or something.
Yeah.
But I can't remember. That's how many things going through my head. Can't even remember what the WhatsApp picture was. But right now, I've met Mo and I've seen some. Just in the minute he like followed each other on Instagram, I've looked at his Instagram page and I've seen. Like I saw that if I remember correctly, I saw a video on Hikayat or something like that.
Yeah,
Hikayat, yeah. And that for me just put a smile on my face. I was like, this looks interesting. I need to come visit it, and I saved it. Just the fact that we've met, and then I've seen the work he's done.
Beautiful.
And he's seen the work I've done, and other people watching this will be able to tap into that and say, if they take one tiny bit of benefit from any of this, you guys have done your job.
I think what people don't also, they might understand. I don't want to say they don't understand, but the community that we have, like we're investing in them.
Yeah.
Like this is not, we're not investing in us, whatever. Obviously, if you get paid for doing something we're passionate about, that's great. But we're investing in them. We're doing something we believe in. We spoke about belief. We're doing something we're passionate about.
Absolutely.
And we're doing something that adds value.
Yeah.
And we're investing our time into this. You're investing your time by being here today.
You talk about you talk about the Arabic language, you know, and what he said just now. Leo, there's a saying in Arabic, no? من علمك حرفا كنت له عبدا. Whoever taught you a letter, you remain indebted to them as a slave.
Yeah.
So if someone can take a letter from what we taught today, or not even taught, from what we spoke about today, my head's in teaching still, I need to prepare for tomorrow.
Yeah.
If anyone's taken just a snippet of something, whether it's how to speak to people, or whether it is how to be more compassionate to others, or whether it's, you know, actually I need to get off my bum and get active and do something. Or
do you know, on that note as well, yeah, like I want to big up Mo as well, because like Mo came in with the biggest gift ever on this episode, and he doesn't even know it. Like he doesn't even know.
I know it either.
He came in with a gift of listening. Like sometimes that's like the biggest thing someone can give someone, and it's just like he's like really like taking it in, and like he just came with a gift of listening.
I appreciate it, man.
That's incredible.
I'm here to try and gain value as well. Like I'm here to learn from you lot. Like that's the most, for me communication it's a 50-50 split between talking and listening. You can't communicate if you're just talking. You need to listen as much.
We also have 2 ears and 1 mouth.
2 ears, 1 mouth. So
I got two mouths, 1 ear though.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit different.
You definitely have two pairs of lips.
Right, okay. That took a weird turn.
That's
Something about tickling time.
that tickled my pickle, bro. Emotional damage.
You know what's beautiful though, when I'm seeing you guys growing, like on the social media, on Instagram, stuff like that. This is probably might have already happened already, but if it hasn't, then it's in the very, very near future. You're gonna start getting DMs from people saying, this little clip, this episode.
You're so funny. We should go on today. As you were talking, go on today.
So honestly, bro, the beautiful thing is, right, I've only been doing this, like this whole putting stuff out on the internet for about 3 years now, coming up to 3 years. On a daily basis, bro, it just fills my heart with joy. Yesterday, I got a message from a kid who says the only reason I've still got the Instagram app is for your page. I don't even want Instagram.
That's amazing, man.
Another
That's
guy,
goals. That is literally
another person messaged me saying, bro, you put up a video about the link between meditation and salah and prayer, and that's really improved the way I have a relationship with God and my prayer. Another person messaged me saying, bro, I'm gonna start my job at Manchester Airport in a week's time, and you inspire me to wanna go there, and like that was because of the page, because of the stuff you put on there. I wanted to go work at an airport. I applied, I got the job, and you inspire me. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, like on a daily basis, this
But
stuff
you know
comes
that
up.
feeling? That feeling you get when you see those messages.
You know what?
Describe it.
And you're
You know,
sitting there,
I'll tell you the
and
feeling.
you're sitting there, and you don't want to monetize.
I'll tell you why. Yeah? I'll tell you why, bro. I'll tell you why.
Describe it.
Yeah?
Describe that feeling.
I'm gonna describe this feeling, yeah, and this feeling comes from one of my favorite du'as in my tradition, right? And it says, "Oh God, do not raise me in the eyes of people one step, unless you lower me within myself by the equal amount." So if for whatever reason people think, "Raw, this guy's sick," within myself, I think I ain't done nothing. I ain't done shit. I still got so much to give. And wallah, bro, I don't even get a chance to like spend enough time with my parents, I feel. But I swear to God, bro, I wake up, I'm like, I'm not doing enough. I sometimes work till 1 a.m. I do a full shift at Heathrow Airport, come home, I'm editing content, I'm talking to like authors, like publishers, I'm talking to I'm active, and I get in bed and I'm like, what did I even do today? I feel like I haven't done enough. I feel like, and that's for me, that's that prayer, I constantly repeat it because I feel like the better I get and the more people think, wow, this guy's doing an amazing job, the more I want to feel like I ain't doing enough. And if ever in my life I start feeling, yeah, I'm a big man, then I don't want to be there. I don't want to be that.
Do you know what? Yeah, not to say that we need to stop. Yeah, but the question is like, when do we stop?
When you die, that's the end.
Yeah.
Because here's why. Yeah, there's a saying that I absolutely love. Yeah, it says, if it was the day of judgment, and in your hand you had a plant, and you had the opportunity to put this plant into the ground. This is a saying from the Prophet Muhammad. If you had an opportunity to put this plant in the ground, and it's the day of judgment, like everything's gonna end now, but you have an opportunity to put this plant in the ground, then do so. And the thing is, it's not just about the plant, because if you have an idea, if you have a piece of value, if you have some information, and you have the opportunity to give that to the next generation, to give that to your brother, to your sister, to anyone in your society, and you have the opportunity to plant that seed of knowledge in their head, and it's the day of judgment in like 2 seconds, then do it. Because the thing is, the next generation relies upon us doing that. If they stand on our shoulders, if the next my mentor told me this, it blew my mind. He's like, you can look a lot further than I could if you stand on my shoulders.
Yeah.
And I think, wow, if he's letting me stand on his shoulders, who am I letting stand on my shoulders?
Yeah.
And if I'm not letting anyone stand on my shoulders, then I'm a prick.
I agree.
Do you know what? And this is what I realized, where obviously like we use different terms, like, you know, educators, teachers, whatever, but I think we're someone who brings empowerment, and I think empowerment's a very important.
I love that word.
Yeah, I think it's a very important thing in life. Where it's like, my thing is this, yeah, my thing is this. Every single person, you know, everyone's going through something and all these different things, and or like someone doesn't like something and whatever. My thing is always like, what are you gonna do about it? How are you going to empower yourself? Is that good enough? Like, is that, you know, do you want to sit there and complain about this and whatever? Or are you going to empower yourself?
Solutions, absolutely, man. Like the point you made just now, like in a sort of spin off from it, and why I agree with it so much, because I genuinely felt something when this person said this. We were in like I told you, the event we were in last week, I believe it was, and I consider him a mentor. He's the CEO. He just recently got an OBE or an MBE, I can't remember. He's the CEO of Muslim Charities Forum, Fedi Etani. And this man, I haven't interacted with him much, but he gave me so much time in this event, and we spoke about, you know, Gibraltar and this and that and loads of things. Then he gave us a little speech at the end, and he said, and he's speaking to a group of young people, all in their own profession, all professionals in their own right, in their own fields. And you know what he said to us? He said, look, guys, one thing that I tell you, and one thing out of experience, wherever you make it, okay, you make it somewhere, when you get there, drag someone else with you. Drag someone else with you.
It reminds me of...
Bruv, let's go.
You know, wherever you make it, drag someone else.
No,
give
that
some-
reminds me of...
That's why he's here. That's why I'm here.
Yeah,
Like, we're dragging each other.
I think we went to that BT sports thing, yeah, and someone in the video,
round the corner.
yeah, someone in the video said it was all about sending the lift back down.
Yeah.
It's like me going up to the 6th floor. I can't just leave the lift on the 6th floor. Someone's on the ground floor waiting for me, waiting for the lift. So it's all about pressing ground and getting out and letting them take out, and then next person.
Honestly, bro, I love that so much.
So good.
'Cause the way, like for me, I felt like, how am I gonna send the lift back down? My brother-in-law, set up a day for me to go up in Cambridge and visit an engineering facility called Marshall Aerospace because he had like something to do with work. The CEO took me around the whole facility, showed me everything. That day I decided I want to be an aerospace engineer. When I stepped into Heathrow,
I thought you was gonna say that they decided you're gonna be the CEO.
No. I want to be aerospace engineer, bro. So for me, I stepped into Heathrow Airport and I looked around, and I felt so privileged to be able to see what I saw in this space. I thought to myself, how can I even keep this to myself when I know there's 16, 17-year-olds out there, 13-year-olds who would completely change their lives if they saw this.
100%.
And I thought to myself, you know what? I asked people around, I'm like, should I do this? Should I not? They're like, oh no, you can't put stuff on social media, you can't do this, can't do that. And I was like, you know what? They taught me something when I first stepped into Heathrow. They said, don't ask for permission, just ask for forgiveness.
It's easier. I found it genuinely, and like this might sound bad sometimes depending on the context, right? But it is so much more beneficial, so much easier for the journey, whatever journey you're on, if you ask for forgiveness and not for permission. Because if you're asking for permission,
everyone's gonna say no. No's the easiest thing to hear.
You're never gonna get anywhere because everyone thinks, we have, the regulations and the policy and the.
Well, you're going to the government, bro. You're gonna be talking a lot about, you know what I'm saying, like about regulations and policies, which is also interesting.
And that's why I said context. No, when you set it on context, we're talking about things that things where you're able to do.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. But how beautiful is that? Like, Aladdin's talking about sending the lift down, and it's just like, you go, I'm gonna lift you up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lift you up.
Facilitate that lift up.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. Speaking of, you was talking about OBEs, you remind me of something. So I put on my LinkedIn, because like people put like whatever that, at the end of the name they have all these different
the acronyms.
All these different acronyms. So I've put TMPH on my thing, and no one's ever asked me about what that means.
What does it mean? I'm asking you.
I know that's the thing. So one person asked me, so what's TMPH? Like, I've not seen it anywhere, whatever. So I put like literally my name is like Leonis Gracious TMPH, yeah, and it means the most passionate human. Wait, yeah, TMPH, yeah, the most passionate human, yeah. And I was just like, I made up my own thing. Like, who's gonna tell me what? Yeah. Who's gonna tell me I can't put that on there?
Yeah,
And I think it's like, I don't want to say it's silly, but it's just like another label for why someone's a little bit like cooler or whatever.
No, but that's the thing. Like, if it's something genuinely, like, why? Like, if there is anyone that can give you a reason for why not, give it to me, please.
Yeah. And I can put OB on there.
That's joke. You know what's jokes? Yeah, is that for that exact same reason I added the airport guy onto my channels, because who do I have to ask for permission? Well, I have to go to the council of airports and be like, can I say I'm the airport guy? Initially, I wrote that airport guy, and my boy was like, no. I was like, okay.
I want to see the airport CEO.
That's right.
The airport CEO.
You know what's jokes? Yeah, I had a dream of being the airport CEO, and then my mentor was like, why don't you want to be the guy who the CEO has to answer questions to? Jeez. I was like, safe, say no more. I don't want to be CEO anymore.
That's the thing,
I'm trying to be the guy who's got.
Why not? Why not? That's the thing. Like, there's that saying that we always hear. Not growing up, although it's scientifically incorrect. It says, shoot for the stars, and if you reach the moon, shoot for the moon, and if you reach the stars, it's okay. Have you ever heard that?
Shoot for the moon. If you miss, at least you'll be amongst the stars.
I was about to say, I remember Nathaniel shoot for the moosh, bro.
But the stars, are much. That's why I said it's scientifically incorrect, because the stars are much further away than the moon. So it's like, although it's just a saying, yeah. But that's the thing.
In a vacuum of space.
Yeah, a vacuum of space. But like, genuinely, like, sky is the limit. Like, it's and maybe not even the limit. Like, whatever hopes you have, like, genuinely just shoot for them. What have you got to lose? Nothing. That is a question I always ask myself. What am I trying to do? Trying to do something, whatever it is. Have I got something to lose? I've got nothing to lose. Have I got something to benefit? I've got.
Do you know what? I think people do have something to lose. I think like I see life as like everyone's winning at something. Even the bad things, like, so someone's like lazy, so like the winners are being lazy, you know what I'm saying? So that's what they got to lose. Like, suddenly if they become like active and they do stuff, it's like they lost
sleep.
No, they lost being champion at being lazy. Like, everyone's winning at something.
Fair enough. I mean, but
I know it's just a different way of looking at things.
No, absolutely.
I'm not that I necessarily agree with it, but like, I feel like, because like we always look at like losing as in like we can lose something positive, but no one talks about, can we lose something negative?
But is that
know.
even a loss?
But then what's positive, what's negative?
That's the thing, yeah.
That's the
you
thing.
can ask the
And
question,
loss
man.
equose gain. So, you know, whether we lose, when we lose something,
if
we also
you
gain
lose
something.
something negative, then you're gaining.
You know, like
if
if,
you lose
for instance,
something
if I lose
positive,
people in life, I gain perspective. You know?
Yeah.
If you go gym, you lose weight, you gain health. You know, you lose a bad habit, you gain something else. You know, like it's just.
But you know, when you lose people, what you just said just now, what do you think? So, if say for example, you lose someone who you thought at a point was very positive in your life, etc., and then you lost them for whatever reason. We're not saying loss as in death, but we're saying loss as in, you know, they did something, you didn't like it, lost, like that's it. You know, the relationship broke down,
Or you did something.
or you did something,
and
and
they thought, oh, this person's changed, and they walked out.
and they walked out. Or, for example, and this is something, and I'm pretty sure you've gone through it as well. You have, like, when we're trying to change ourselves and we're investing our time into things that we think are going to help us more reach those goals that we have and empower others and work in the fields we're doing and put in as much effort. Or maybe, for example, we've tried with these individuals who were in our life or in our circle, but they just don't get it. And they just don't click. The click you guys spoke about before, like you were given these opportunities, but you didn't click and you didn't get it. So you've tried, but it doesn't work. And you're taking that lift up and you've dragged what you can with you, but that lift doesn't take those up. And then they, what's the word? They build this resentment and they say, you've changed, but I've changed. I have changed. But for me, that change has been positive. But because it's distanced me from you, you now see it as a negative.
The interesting thing that this raises when you have people who react in that sort of way is, I've always seen that from personal experience, the moment I decided to embark on this journey of like what I do, like on like, you know, to change myself, right, and to improve myself. Yes, people left, like, and people just stopped wanting to vibe with me and stopped wanting to be in my circle. And what I realized afterwards is that actually those people was limiting like the potential of my life. And the thing is, what happened, I heard this on a podcast before, and I'm going to regurgitate it, right? When you start to put yourself out there and you start to put yourself online, or you start to make a podcast like this and you put sharing your ideas out there, you are like a lighthouse. You have built a lighthouse. And what happens when you build a lighthouse is that at the start, no one cares. It's just a lighthouse. But over time, boats start to see this lighthouse and start to point towards it. And after years and years and years, all of a sudden you look out and it's become a port and a harbor. And all of a sudden you have thousands of boats that use this lighthouse as a source of guidance and a source of a place, a direction.
That's beautiful.
That is
man.
But
amazing.
at the start, nobody cared you were there. And the thing is that the thing is, you didn't just build a lighthouse out of nothing. What you did is you had built a shell around yourself of bricks of what other people expected of you. And you had built this cocoon around yourself. And what you're doing is putting up a fake image so other people hopefully can love you. That's what I did anyway. You know, you pretend to be someone so other people love you. All of a sudden you realize, I don't want to use my bricks like that. I want to use my bricks to build a lighthouse. You start dismantling those bricks and you start putting down the bricks you want from your soul, from your heart. You build this lighthouse, and then the people are like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Go back in your shell that I had put you in my mind. You're not meant to be like that.
Yeah, you're within the confines of that space. Yeah.
You're meant to be in the confines of what I
100%,
expect of you.
Yeah,
And the moment you
yeah.
stop doing that, they're like, well, I'm not going to chill here anymore. And they go. And then there's going to be a moment where you're lonely and no one wants to chill with you anymore. But then that's when the lighthouse kicks in and you start to attract people who have the same vision and ambition and passion and love and all the kindness to give in the world.
love that.
And that becomes your circle. You create your circle because you've become a lighthouse.
And that's why
I love
we're
that.
Here. And that's why we're here today.
So you're
That is generally, today is a culmination, I think, from what he's just said. Genuinely, today is a culmination of that in my eyes. It's
100%.
whatever, literally exactly what you said, spot on, has led to this moment. And then it's beautiful to see that, because like genuinely spot on. Like I love what you've just said, because if you remember before what I mentioned, it's a very lonely trip. And it's a very lonely situation sometimes when you're treading that path on your own. But here, this moment, or moments like these, is where you think it was worth it feeling lonely for that small amount of time.
Yeah, let's start checking out. because we do still have limitations on battery lives.
Battery lives.
SD
cards.
Limitations on battery.
To be fair, we have 20 minutes left of the audio, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah. So now let's start checking out. But just one thing on the lighthouse. I remember this quote, which also changed my perspective. So like there's people who, like, let's say, contact you when they need something, but usually they wouldn't. And actually, like this, it changed my perspective completely. So it says, don't be angry when someone reaches out to you when they need something, because actually you're like a candle, in the dark. So like when they're in a dark place, they need a candle to light the place up, and you're like a candle when they're in a dark place. So that's why they're reaching out to you, even though it is when they need something. That's completely fine. That changed my perspective completely. But also, let's check out with. You wanna drop the question?
Oh, okay.
So come here. Come drop it here now.
Come drop here.
Yeah, come drop it here. Come drop it here.
Only if you stand behind me.
I'm getting nervous.
Yeah, I'm getting nervous. What's this question?
What's this question?
So, what tickles
Will you sign your inheritance over to us?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cheers. What camera and that? You telling me? Boom. First question.
When I let smiles like that, it's dangerous, man.
Shotgun, you answer first.
Oh, God.
First questions, yeah. First question. Do you want to plug anything? Do you want to plug anything like to the audience? Do you want to follow anything? Is there anything you want to plug?
Oh, to plug. I mean, we'll plug it again, the Instagram, I guess. EL_YOUSSI. What else? Gibraltar, if anyone wants a holiday in the sun. Gibraltar government.
Man's talking about it like he's going to get a percentage of
Who knows? Maybe I've told them that I'm coming on here, and they said,
plug
our Gibraltar tourist.
Youssef probably seen that community's grown a little bit since the last time. So I was like,
come down to Gibraltar.
Yeah.
No, but genuinely, I'd say, I feel when someone says, "Do you want to plug it?" It feels a bit like I'm not normally shy, but you get that feeling of like, it's...
I understand, man. But to be fair, more time. I put all your Instagrams in the description anyway. So
but to be honest with you, I mean, follow the journey, not just ours, but this beautiful entity right here of Beyond the Surface. The journey will be great, and I think, and I speak for myself, but I think Mo would agree 100%, is that it has been an honor being on here. It's been a beautiful experience. It's lovely to chat, but at the same time to share on this platform and to learn. I think that's key, to take something from here, to take home. Is we always learn. You could sit anywhere for a coffee, and if you can take something from that, then you're being that positive circle in your life. But yeah, Mo, go for it.
I have a request for people.
Quickly, before you say your thing, there's actually a correlation. Like, you're plugging Gibraltar, you can plug Heathrow Airport, so you can go to Gibraltar.
Boom, look at that. We've just created
some
a holiday.
collab. Nah, you know what? I'm not plugging.
He works for a hotel.
We're not plugging Heathrow.
Take whatever flight, whatever airport you want to get to Gibraltar. Rather than following my accounts or whatever, if anyone's got to this point of the podcast, pick up the phone to your mum, your dad, your grandma, your granddad, if they're still alive. Just say hello, check in with them, because that's more important than plugging anything.
100%.
Check up on them. They will only be here for a certain amount of time, and that at some point in your life you're going to regret not having done that. That's a reminder to myself first and foremost. But if you got to that point, just pause this video, pick up the phone, give them a call. Anyone that you love, just let them know you love them.
I don't pause it. Just keep the video running, and then
there's still more to come.
After the video is done, then I'm just playing. That's powerful.
What I love about Mo, even the same as last time. Last time you didn't plug anything, you plugged the book. You just said, I don't care about Instagram. I want you to read this book. So very consistent that he did this.
That's why he doesn't want to monetize his content.
You know what, bro? Because the thing is, right, when you add value and when you present people with a piece of information or knowledge, it doubles in value every single time. So whenever you pass something on to somebody, the value of that thing has now doubled and doubled and doubled and doubled. So every single view on this YouTube video is a potential doubling of the value that we've had in this conversation. Yeah. And you know what? it's just all everything in my life has just been a blessing from God, and I just shout out in it to the big man upstairs, because hopefully I can live true to myself and not veer off, because it's a slippery slope, man. The devil's out here to get everyone, but I'm hoping, I'm praying that
my enemies are onto me, man.
Yeah, man.
Yo, send me 30 bags. My enemies are after me.
The ops around it.
Enemies after me.
But genuinely, man, like I've seen it only for a couple of seconds, but that's why I say my Instagram is just a personal page that really, I share personal things. It's not nothing, that has like sort of necessary value. It's more the work that we do, but I've only seen it for a couple of seconds, and honestly, Mo, bro, the videos you have and the content you have is worth sharing. It's worth checking. So if anyone's still on this, go on to his page and see it, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make barakah in everything you do. And honestly, man, your point hit home about pick up that phone and call home, because you truly don't value something until you no longer have it. And, living away from my parents and my siblings, being back home in Gibraltar, it's something that you tussle with every day. And it's like, all you have, thankfully, at least we have the phone we can call with. But when, genuinely people don't understand the value of what they have until they no longer have it, whether it's death or distance, it's
so we're running out of time. So I think maybe let's just check out with a final question.
Sorry, so I was interrupt on his behalf. Final question, and I'm moving like it's some type of scary question. You're familiar with the question? Very simple. If you had one thing to say to 7.8 billion people.
Oh, it's not that easy now, is it? Because I always rephrase it so he gets on to me.
No. I go.
Yeah, now the roles reversed, bro.
Keep it quiet. You had one chance to say one thing to 7.8 billion people. Go. Obviously, you go first.
Technically, this is his second chance now.
Yeah.
I don't really feel that way.
I'm gonna just say this, is that the world is not the same without the impact that you have on it. So God, there is something in you that the world needs, and you might think I'm just one of 7 point whatever billion people, but in reality, every one of us 7 point something billion people is reliant upon you to give us your best, and we need you. So don't do it because you want to do it. We need you. That's what I'm going to say to them.
We'll see.
Amazing. I think, and it's something that ties in perfectly with what you've said, Mo, and what we've been talking about from the beginning until now. But in light of what's happening around us in the world, not just close to us geographically, but all around the world, I think one thing that sticks with me, and I'll stick to my guns when it comes to this, to the topic of communication and speaking to people. I think it's an ayah from the Quran that I've learnt on purpose in English from Arabic, just so that I can use it in situations like this. And it's Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya ayyuhan nasu inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qaba'ila lita'arafu inna akramakum 'inda Allahi atqakum. And that in English is, O mankind, we've created you from male and female, made you into many peoples and tribes so that you may know one another. Verily, the best of you is the most pious. So what does piety mean, and what is piety? And I think the core of that, the core of piety, is about being that decent human being, that selfless human being, and in service of others, and just basically it doesn't cost you much to be nice. And that's the core of that piety. And if we can all aspire to be, no matter what faith we follow, no matter what culture we have, no matter where we come from, if we aspire to be pious people and to be people who are decent human beings, I think we really can change the environment around us and the wider environment in general, step by step.
Beautiful, man. All right, my people. Gratitude for.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been, this is gold, man. This is gold. And for those people that are listening and watching, I just want to remind you of your patience and your ability to listen. And you know what? Just, if you're here, you're still watching, you're still listening.
I think they deserve a round of applause, don't they?
Yeah, like
MVP.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, don't forget to recognize yourself for the responsibility you've taken to elevate yourself in life.
Yeah, and thank you to you two both, because this wouldn't have been possible without you. And I respect the fact that you guys have kept the consistency up, because so many people out there start something and then it just flops on his face. But you lot, I can see you guys going so far, honestly, and I say this because the stuff you're doing is genuinely adding value, and it's only going to get better and better, bro. So thank you to both of you.
I think they deserve one as well. Yeah. Well done, guys.
On that note,
Much love, guys.
Drop the mic.
I've been holding this.
That's it.
20 minutes.